And just in general, I welcome everyone to our January presentation as part of our Ability Grand Round series for the WVU CED. So this month, we have Dr. Rick Solomon. You can see his screen up there in the top. I'm excited to have Dr. Solomon present to us. He is one of the rare developmental and behavioral pediatricians that you can find in the United States. I know we'd love to have him here at WVU. That specialty is so needed. He has more than 25 years of experience in that role, and particularly working with children who have behavioral and developmental conditions. He has seen hundreds of children with autism and their families every year in the Ann Arbor Center for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics. That's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I encourage everyone to check out that website. It's a really good website to see what they do. And lastly, Dr. Solomon is an international expert. He's recognized for his autism services, and particularly one that he's going to talk to us today about, which is the PLAY project, an autism intervention model. So with that, I believe everyone has the objectives and your title, but with that, Dr. Solomon, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your screen and get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Leslie. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to people about what I consider to be a really important topic. As Leslie said, I've been a developmental pediatrician for 25 years, and I've been watching this landscape, this national and international landscape. And one of the things that is very close to my heart is all of these children who are on wait lists for services, especially these very young children who are on wait lists. And today my talk is really going to be addressed to what I consider to be one of the central public policy issues of our times when it comes to children with autism. And what I'm going to argue for these 5 arguments is that we really need to change policy to increase the availability of services, and that the type of services that I believe can make a profound difference in public policy and in the lives of these children is parent implemented models. So what I'm going to be doing today is really presenting to you the dilemma that we're facing. I have been the medical director of 3 ABA programs. I'm obviously in the medical field. I've seen what I call the medical model approach, which is where therapists deliver the services to children with autism. And when I was medical director of the ABA programs, a large ABA program was only, we had 20 children in our program, and that was fairly large for the community. Very large programs might serve 100, maybe 1,000 throughout the state. But in fact, there are tens of thousands of children who are waiting. So I'll start by sharing my screen and introducing one of my patients who's fairly high functioning. I want to mention right at the beginning that the play project that I'll be talking about as an example of a parent training model is very respectful of neurodivergent individuals, and our approach is centered in neurodiversity because we really honor and accept the children where they're at. So this first little boy, though, has really reached a high level of potential, as you'll see. And part of my joke in doing a program that's play-based is that we take play seriously. And after you listen to this joke, I'll explain that to you a little bit more. So let me get you to our program here. And all right, so this is the play project autism intervention model as an example of how to go from clinical practice through research to statewide implementation with 5 public policy arguments Wait, hold on. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
So let's start with the
what
quote.
did the kid say when the Statue of Liberty sneezed?
What did the kid say when the Statue of Liberty sneezed?
God bless America.
Oh.
Okay, so to me, this is, one of the great achievements of being human, and that is the ability to tell a joke and to understand a joke. I mean, he laughed at his own joke, but that happens. So this capacity, this social skills capacity, is at the center of developmental relationship-based approaches where you're training the parents. So on the one hand, we promote the child's potential to have a sense of humor and to be able to connect with his audience. On the other hand, we start with autism, which is demonstrated here with this initial case study that I'll be using to go through my talk.
Oh, I gotta taste them. See how they taste.
And he tastes, like, I've even noticed him taste the wall before.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, down, down, down. What was that? Hey. Hey. Julian. Where is Julian? Where is Julian? I can't see him. Where is Julian? Where is Julian? I can't see him. I can't see him. Hey. Hey. Boom. I'm gonna get you.
So I'm going to stop sharing there and just take a moment to talk about this video. So I'm going to use this study of Julian throughout the talk, and I'll show you his progression over time. But this is the first video of him and his mom when Julian was 13 months old. And I hope you could see in this video how difficult he was to engage. This is really what makes autism. These are often children who are very hard to engage, especially early on. And every time I watch this, it makes me sad to think that there are tens of thousands of parents out there trying to engage their hard to engage children throughout the country, throughout the world, really. We're doing our programs internationally. And it's so sad that parents have trouble playing with their children. This mom trying so hard. Julian's wearing a little shirt that's called Mommy's Rascal. So she's trying to own him. She's singing this heartbreaking song, Where is Julian? I Can't See Him, which is one of these spontaneous songs that tells you everything about their relationship. And it's really sad, and yet it's happening all over. And so this is where my heart is. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And what we're trying to do now is really promote large scale implementation so that this becomes public policy. So let me go back to sharing the screen with you. And go to the next slide, because the cost here, and I made this up, this is my clinical experience. The cost here is tremendous in human potential. You don't have to teach typical children to be social. And even children with cognitive delays, but otherwise fairly engageable, often develop fairly well socially. But children with autism, if you don't do intensive early intervention, the large majority of children have a quite very difficult developmental course where they often become isolated, not functional, don't develop language. And yet what's ironic, paradoxical, is that when you do work to engage the children to help them reach their full potential and work with them socially, they can march up what we call the functional developmental levels kind of in a reverse process. You have to catch up. You have to catch up to typically developing children when it comes to social skills. But if you do intensive intervention, these children can make tremendous progress. So it's one of the ironies is that while the developmental course can be quite poor, with intensive early intervention, it can be quite good, which is what allows, which is really what makes the argument for these types of intervention. So I'm going to present these 5 arguments fairly quickly, then go through the play project model, just so you get a feel for what it's like to have a parent implemented model that is developmental and relationship based. That's the parent implemented DRB model. And then talk briefly at the end about the evidence for the play project and the statewide implementation that we did in Ohio. So here's the first argument, and that is that we're not meeting the need. There's now 2% or more of children with autism. This number is growing dramatically, has grown dramatically over my career. And the National Research Council, and I think most everyone would agree that you need to start providing intensive early intervention if you want to help the children reach their full potential. This is from Kathy Lord and her group. It recommends starting really early, and I think you can go as early as 14 months. I think any child that's hard to engage, you can start doing these types of interventions. You want to provide about maybe between 1 to 2 hours a day, maybe 15 to 25 hours per week total time. Should be one-on-one in the beginning. It should be engaging and should be evidence-based, based on strategies, well-established strategies to address the comprehensive needs of the children. This is the definition of intensive intervention. Of course, I summarized 300 pages and 5 key bullet points. Now parent implemented models that use a developmental relationship-based approach are intensive. They do train the parents. The focus is on social pragmatics. And the methodology is to honor exactly where the child is at. What I like to say is that when you accept the child for exactly where they're at, that's the fastest way to help them reach their full potential. There's now a lot of evidence. I'd recommend the article by Binns. I'll be referencing that now, but that's an open access article, BINNS. And Orem Cardy did a wonderful review of all these types of programs. And so given the prevalence, as I said in my introduction, there are just too many children waiting. They're not being enough served through therapist-based interventions because these therapist-delivered services are too costly and they're really hard to administer, as anybody who has run an ABA program knows. So I'm going to argue that these parent-implemented models should become public policy. And there have been 2 recent articles, the Mandel article and the Shinuda. You can take a picture of this slide. It basically looked at the prevalence of services. And what they found consistently is that children are not getting services to the extent that they should be. So if you want to take a quick picture of that, the conclusion that Mandel said is that even 3 years or more after implementation of these insurance mandates, mostly ABA, treated prevalence was much lower than community prevalence. And I think as anybody who knows, who works with children on the spectrum, you know that there's long wait lists. I know that I see it all the time, up to 1 year just to get into diagnostics, let alone services. And these parent implemented models are less costly, they're easier to implement, and they can be broadly disseminated because one parent consultant can serve 25 children. In therapist delivered models, often you have 1 therapist per child or one therapist for 2 children. The other good news is that these models can be replicated and disseminated with high fidelity, and I'll be talking about how that was done in Ohio. Large-scale statewide dissemination through early intervention is the way to go, in my opinion. And we have done that in Michigan, Illinois, Ontario, and in Ohio. Which I'll be talking about at the end, we actually had our program evaluated independently by SB Sherwin. So if you're interested, that's also an open access article called Evaluation of the Ohio Play Project. The other important piece here for meeting the need is that we have a large number of child development professionals who all they have to do is shift their approach to training parents. Whether you're a speech and language, OT, social worker, whether you're an early intervention worker, whether you're a teacher in a preschool setting, all you have to do is shift your approach to focusing on supporting families in interacting with their children. They can provide intensity throughout the week through this is not therapy, this is intervention. They provide intensity just through all interactions. We say make every interaction a good interaction. Parents are always interacting. Even a 2 working parent family is going to be engaging with their children 40 waking hours per week. So I think that even working single divorced parents are going to be able to do this, and these types of interventions are complementary to all other therapies, medical therapies. So here's just a quick handy dandy little chart that looks at the parent implemented versus therapist delivered models, and the focus for PIM are social interaction. And this is where the research shows this is the focus, whereas a lot of these other more behavioral interventions have had better language and IQ and behavior outcomes, because these parent implemented models are more child-centered as opposed to program-centered. We're literally following the child's idea, which is not easy to do, but it can be done. And when it's done, it can be very effective. The big difference here is that parents deliver the services versus therapists, and the cost differential is 10 times. Average cost for a parent implemented model, about $5,000, minimal $50,000, depending on how many hours you do, up to $100,000 a year per child. So according to the DSM-5, and this is kind of the second argument. So the first argument is there's a need, and that parent implemented models can really begin to address this need. The second argument is that autism is a condition characterized primarily by social challenges. And if you look at the DSM-5, these are the characteristics: problems with social, emotional reciprocity and back and forth conversation and maintaining relationships and using nonverbal gestural communication, and importantly, imaginative play. These are the things that are definitional. And interventions that focus on social interaction then are really essential to the intervention. And that's what these parent implemented models that are developmental and, quote, relationship-based do. They address social interaction. And so, one type of therapy, it really can't address it all. These PIM DRB approaches should be a strong option. And we got lots of people who can deliver the services. The difference here too, down here, if you look at the treatment sessions, 4 hours per month is all it really takes to be effective. And the research has shown that to be the case, making it a really efficient option for large scale implementation. These models are recognized now as evidence-based by the National Clearinghouse for Autism Evidence and Practice. There's over a dozen randomized controlled trials. Here's the Binns Orem Carty if you want to take a picture of the slide. Recently, Sandbank has reviewed the literature, looking, and Sandbank it's a female named Michael Sandbank, who is a behavioral therapist, looked at all the literature and concluded that these parent implemented developmental relationship-based models were evidence-based. So this raises a public policy implications. If there's evidence, if it's efficient, if it's practical, if it's less costly, if it's more easily disseminated than current models, then it should be paid for by insurance, and insurance should support these types of programs. And in fact, more insurance programs are. New Jersey, Minnesota, soon Illinois are going to be covering these through Medicaid. And it all makes sense to do so. This is hot off the press issues when it comes to autism intervention. So as I mentioned here, Kaiser Permanente in California is paying for it. We're talking with the military and TRICARE. It's moving through the system slowly. Behavioral health agencies. The other thing to say here on the insurance page is that you can actually deliver speech and language, occupational social work services, and use your standard codes. But instead of doing, quote, therapy, you would do parent training. And it would still qualify. You're not defrauding the system. You would still be delivering occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, social work services, but early intervention services usually not covered by insurance. But you would be providing these services legitimately by licensed professionals. And so by training someone in these models, they can deliver these in the clinic setting. So let me talk a little bit now. So those are the big 5 arguments, really, that these things, that parent implemented models should be implemented for public policy. Let me talk about the Play Project model as an example, just so you get a feel for what one of these models looks like. So our mission is to support families in having a joyous and playful relationship with the children who have autism, so that the children can reach their full potential. And this is exactly how it works. Our vision then is to train a global network of pediatric professionals and child development experts to provide the intervention to serve as many families as needed. And this is the public policy vision of this model. So what are the characteristics? It's evidence-based, it's parent implemented. It's often home-based, but it can be offered in the clinic. It's early intervention, intensive early intervention, because we want to get these kids as early as possible. It serves thousands of families nationally and internationally. And it's fun. You have to wear hats and mustaches and silly clothes in order to do the Play Project. I told that joke in China, and they believed me. I had to tell them it was a joke. So the way it works is we train professionals to coach the parents. And these are SLPs, OTs, social workers, early intervention providers, psychologists, doctors. They work in med rehab, early intervention, mental health, behavioral health. And we do this training through a 5-step process where they apply to make sure they're qualified to learn the model. They take the intensive workshop where they learn the basics. Then they go through a fairly intensive implementation course over a 6-week time frame, after which they can start taking care of families. So this is, excuse me, in our model, this is a very efficient way to get going to serve these families. And then they undergo supervision while they're seeing families by turning in video case studies. And after 12 to 18 months, turning in 15 case studies, they're certified. And our research has shown that the consultants, the pediatric professionals, are well trained and showed high fidelity to the model. And as you'll see in the research, showed that they could transmit the model to the families. So fundamentally, we train professionals and child development experts to coach parents to help their young children with autism through play. This is in a nutshell. And we do that through what's called the 7 circles of the Play Project. In these circles, we teach the 4 principles and the methods, which we'll go over. We individualize for the unique child that the parents are interacting with. We help the parents by creating structure through techniques and activities. This is the third circle. The fourth circle is we then go either in the home or in the clinic, and we coach and we model, we play with the child, and we give the parents feedback through video feedback, through video that's obtained during a visit. And then we expect the parents to put in some time throughout the day. We actually do a write-up, so they get a video review and written suggestions, so they have a play plan in our approach. And then as the children make progress, we change the whole program because it's all based on the child's unique profile. So here's just an example of our principles. We have 4 principles. Number 1 is fun with people, doing what the child loves. And I say, when you do what the child loves, the child will love to be with you. And that's undermines the social isolation of autism. You have to put in the time throughout the day. Parents in our research study said they stopped thinking about the time because they just played all the time, just like you do with your kids. The important thing is to accurately profile the child's in terms of what they love, their comfort zone, their sensory motor profile, the OT domain, and their functional developmental levels, more the speech and language, social pragmatic domain. And that's the role of the play consultant. So once you can profile the child accurately, then you can begin to coach the parents in the right way, because most parents will play too high as a rule. And then, you want to play at that right level. Now, here's the methods, and these are really key, and this is what we're teaching the families. And all of this is somewhat difficult for families because they're not used to necessarily adopting the child's idea. The parents have their own ideas about what they think their child should do based on their age. And we have to rein them in a little bit and help them slow down to read the child's cues and intent, because as I joke, children with autism will not walk up to you and say, hey, you know what I'm thinking? Let me tell you, you have to interpret their gestural inner cues. And to do that, you got to go slow and wait for the child's idea. Then you follow the child's idea. And it can be in the beginning more sensory motor interaction and play. May not be pretend play. It's whatever the child's idea truly is. If they're throwing themselves against the couch for fun, you give them squishes and pushes. And what you'll get when you do that, when you do steps 1, 2, and 3 of the methods, you will get interaction, which we call opening and closing circles of communication. So that when you offer 5, you open a circle. When you slap 5, that closes the circle. This process of the interactional process, which tends to be unconscious, is taught to the parents. So they begin to think in terms of interaction. And then you build. You can be creative. That's where the techniques come in. So here's Julian, kind of his first interaction.
Now be careful with the tickling, because remember how he kind of, so if you can like squeeze his leg.
Okay.
And
so this is where we're getting his profile here. We're getting his sensory motor profile, which is really important.
And maybe tap it on the floor, like incorporate more of a deep pressure touch than like a light.
Okay.
So go ahead and push that. If he's pushing it, you push it.
And that was Julian's idea. He pushed the rocking horse, but his idea changes. Now, right there, we have a little shared attention.
Now he's going to do it.
Nope, he's changed his mind.
Let me help.
So now he wants to get on.
It's way too long.
Okay, so this is his idea. So this is where his attention is, and his intention was to be on top of that. So you read that right. Yeah, bounce, 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 stop.
Boom, boom. We've got some nice engagement going here. We've got just some brief engagement, but this is the beginning of the process. By following his lead and doing what he loves, we got some engagement.
Now see what he does.
But boom, just as quickly, which is the case so often with children who have autism, we lose attention and engagement, and mom waits and waits.
When he looks at you again, I like your smile. Oh, brother.
Yeah, he's not opening a circle. He's not initiating. So now we have to go after him a little bit.
Go, get his attention. Okay, let's kind of get the idea going for him. Bounce, 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 bounce.
Now we're back. So I hope you could see that this takes work, takes a little bit of work of knowing what you're doing in order to really get the child's engagement. But that was a good use. That shows the use of methods. The profile of the child is broken down into 3 areas: their comfort zone, that's what they love, and where their feeling life is. Their sensory motor profile, because children with autism are often very sensory bound, and their functional developmental levels, which follows the work of Greenspan. So we honor the Greenspan and Serena Weider DIR theoretical framework, but we're much more structured, we're autism focused, we're evidence-based. But if you look at the child's comfort zone, what they love, these are the typical behaviors of children. This is the other half of the definition, which is repetitive behaviors. Lining up cars and trains, humming, jumping, flipping through books. As children become higher functioning, they end up liking letters, numbers, colors, but there's always this tendency toward linearity and repetition. And then we look at their sensory motor profile. We look at all of their preferences, all of their avoidances. We look at their ability to regulate themselves and to stay calm and attentive, to become social. We feed their sensory needs to help them calm down. We limit the noisy, chaotic environments. We meet sensory seekers by roughing them up. We help the overreactive child by quieting down the environment. We up-regulate the children who are kind of underreactive. And we pay very close attention to the continuum of self-regulation, so that we're always trying to stay here in this center to help with attention, get attention and engagement. And then the last part of the profile is actually using the Greenspan framework, which is for younger children, 6 levels. And what Greenspan maintains, and what I agree with, is that when you work on the functional developmental levels, the children will follow a developmental progression that is in many ways typical. In many ways, the way typical children develop, by starting with simple shared attention, which you saw Julian had shared attention. He became engaged. And then we had some two-way communication where he looked at his mom and he was kind of closing a circle of interaction. And then as children make progress, you'll see Julian make progress up the functional developmental levels. They follow a developmental progression. I have found this to be universal.
What are you gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna get in your way. Abo. Abo. Say beep beep. Open. Watch your head.
See, we can't fit underneath there. Did you trick her? Did you trick her?
So totally a different kid from 2 months ago.
So I hope you can see that Julian has made tremendous progress from not sharing attention, not being engaged, not interacting in a two-way, to actually now doing all of these above and beginning to act in a complex two-way communication, playing a game of kind of hide and seek with his play consultant who is there in this video. And so Julian has made a lot of progress in only 3 months. And this type of progress is not uncommon. Then what we do is we give the parents structure and support by giving them a range of techniques that can answer the question, how do I engage my child, and what would be, and activities, what would be fun for the child. We actually have found that children's activities change, what they love changes as they make progress up the functional developmental levels, from being more sensory play to being more sequence play to being more pretend play. And in our model and the Greenspan framework, imagination and pretend play are highly valued.
With that idea.
Push.
So here he is.
Oh, keep pushing. One more time. Good job. Ready? 1, 2. Push. Push. Good job. 1, 2. Uh-oh.
Okay, now wait. Let him come get you. Oh,
Okay.
good. Label his intention.
Get car. Get car, mama.
So you've seen him initiate. Mom's pregnant with his sister and she's having to work hard. It is work, but it's fun. And then comes the coaching and modeling and feedback. We're now going to, you saw his play consultant coaching and playing with him and coaching mom and giving her written feedback. So we actually have a set of forms that we train the play consultants to do to give the parents feedback based on video and the visits. And then we expect the parents to put in the time by using daily routines and making every interaction count. And then they do get this report from us in once a month. That's all. After the visit. So they have the visit, then they get the report, then they get the visit sent to them. That includes an analysis of the video review, the keys to the child's case with the child's profile, methods, techniques, and activities that will work to help this child be engaged. And then the children really make progress and they start climbing up this the developmental ladder. What we're really shooting for is joyful relating and complex nonverbal gestures, long interactions, lots of back and forth circles of communication, so that the child is sharing attention, developing language related to their feeling life, and they're with us. They don't have that fragmentation that you see so often in kids with autism, so that they are actually socially functional and interested in others. I know this sounds nearly ideal, but in fact, it's common that children who get this type of intervention develop these abilities. And so this next video clip actually shows you Julian doing pretend play. He's got this little dinosaur in his hand, and the play consultant is pretending to be afraid of it.
Is he gone? Is it okay now? Julian, you just hit your...
He scares her and he knows that she's afraid. And then Julian becomes 5 years old. He's going to kindergarten in a regular kindergarten classroom, and his sister tried to take his toys, so he hit his sister.
Julian, you just hit your sister. Wait, look at me. Why did you hit her? Oh no, Julian, what can you say to her instead of hit her? What can you say? You don't know? Say, Amelia, don't touch my stuff.
Don't touch my stuff.
get her, Mommy.
So Julian has become an emotional thinker. So we took our clinical model and we tested it through research. We did an original study, pre-post study at the University of Michigan when I was there, and then moved on to get a NIH grant called SBIR, Small Business Innovations. I had gone into private practice by that time and got a phase 2 grant because it looked so promising. This was a nearly $2 million grant that we did with Easter Seals and Michigan State. Easter Seals was our clinical partner. Michigan State was our evaluation partner. This was a randomized controlled trial, multi-site blinded study with 120 children, one of the largest studies of its kind, which we published in 2014 in JDBP. And now since then, as I mentioned, there's been a growing body of literature, but we were one of the earliest rigorous studies to show that this type of model could be effective. And we compared the play project to community standard CS by doing a pre-assessment, a post-assessment. We added the play project once a month to the profile. These children in the control group got quite good services, including at least 12 hours per week of preschool, plus speech and language and occupational therapy. And our results were focused on, first of all, were the home consultants true to the model, which they showed to be according to our fidelity manual. And then were the parents effective? Were they effectively trained by these high fidelity consultants? And the parents showed marked improvement in their sensitivity, responsiveness, and effectiveness. Sensitivity is reading cues, responsiveness is following the lead, and effectiveness means getting circles of communication, all of which were significant with high effect sizes. They were not directive, and the parents were, one of the things that NIH was worried about was we were making demands on these families to put in the time. And did we stress them out? And the answer is no. We actually, stress went down as it did in the control group. But interestingly, depression went down significantly more. We just published a paper on this compared to the control group, which you'd expect that because the children in the play project improved dramatically with an improvement in their attention and their involvement and their compliance, interestingly, and especially their initiation. And many of the children improved in their ADOS scores. This is the control group over here. This is the treatment group. And you can see that the green is how many improved. Almost twice as many children in the play project improved in their ADOS scores. And so we showed marked improvement in caregiver child interaction, social interaction of children, social emotional development. This was really the first study using a parent implemented model to show improvements in autism symptomatology on the ADOS with no increase in stress or depression, reduction in depression. And so this model looked to be a good model to replicate because it was highly structured, it was efficient. It seemed a cost-effective way to disseminate a model that would meet a growing need to get children off a wait list. And so what we did is we implemented this in Ohio. The Department of Disabilities actually trained 158 early intervention personnel in Ohio, implemented by the county boards. We're serving at least 500 children per year in Ohio. And we were evaluated in the Ohio system through Akron Children's Hospital, Maryland, SB Sherwin. You can get that report. But what they showed fundamentally was very high satisfaction by the home consultants, by the play project consultants, and the parents were highly satisfied. There were pluses and minuses that showed that, it took time to do the video report. But they were glad that they had the prior knowledge and they had what they had learned. We used to have a 4-day training. Now it's more efficient, all online, all of our training. They love the feedback from the supervisors. They love support from the play project. They had to deal with some technology and administrative support, and they had to work on the play project throughout the week. And then they had to listen to feedback from their supervisors, all of which were somewhat time consuming. Family buy-in was, plus or minus. And we are demanding in order to be certified. So, and initially they had trouble finding families, but now they're having no problems. So overall, you could see here that overall satisfaction was very high with our model. And this is some of the details of some of what the parents said as part of the evaluation, which you can read about. So here's what Ohio looked like, the map of Ohio in 2019. It's about 70% of the counties, especially the big counties, are all providing play project, and they've been providing the play project in Ohio in early intervention for over 10 years now. So we've been able to train more providers, to train more parents, to help more children. I really think that we can change the course of life for children, especially if we start early, offer intensive intervention, and empower the families on a large scale. So is there hope for autism? I think there's reason to be very hopeful, especially if we keep evolving our models. So that leaves us a little time for discussion. I hope that was interesting to you all.
It definitely was interesting. And at this time, I haven't seen any questions. I think people have been looking at your slides and listening to you tentatively and very focused. So if you have questions, please raise your hand, let us know, put it in the chat.
Yeah, please. That's why I rushed. So we would have time to talk. Yes, sir. Eric.
Hello, sir. First
Hi.
of all, that was very exciting and interesting.
Okay.
And that it just makes sense. I was wondering, so you're saying that most of the therapists, because I had wrote Dr. Cottrell in this, that the style that we kind of implement here is very client-centered, that focus on comprehension. And through that comprehension, it usually interrupts any ineffective human interactions. It usually interrupts that the social norm piece, because the heightened level of comprehension and engagement. The way you're doing this, I totally understand the role modeling and the engagement piece. That is about the human connection, and
That's right.
it's just freaking amazing, bro. I don't really have too much to say to you other than that. Amazing. And I think it would be great here in the state of West Virginia.
No, well, thank you for your appreciation, because that's the first step, really, to appreciate what we're doing. And I've been doing this for 25 years, and I follow families longitudinally. In my developmental clinic, I had a private practice where I was following hundreds of families.
Yes, sir.
And I can tell you that by doing this type of intervention early, it changes their entire course of life.
Yeah.
Because that foundation of engagement that you're talking about, that's the root. That's the root of everything, of learning. That's the root of social skills. That's the root of human relationships. And so we focus heavily on shared attention, engagement, and interaction as our first base.
Yeah.
And it also provides, as is typical, for language, because it's not until you're connected socially that you begin to make sense of the world socially, and then you begin to use language. And it's amazing. These kids start talking right when they're supposed to, developmentally speaking.
Doc, I got another question for you, Doc.
Sure.
I didn't mean to call you Doc. I act like I know you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay.
So, Doc, I was wondering, how have you seen this affect fathers?
Yes. Well, I didn't talk too much about the impact on the family, but we are a parent training program. And so we impact the whole family system, the whole family system. And I don't want to push my book, but my book called Autism, the Potential Within describes a family and the process that they go through while they're learning the play project. And it's based on a real, family. It's kind of like a large number of families.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I do in my clinic, is I'm working with families. So the impact on the mother, the father, the siblings is profound, because when the child becomes more engaging and interactive, the whole family life is affected. No question. And fathers, speaking of which, I think fathers are probably in some ways more amenable to the play project, because we're always promoting roughhousing.
Yes.
And sensory motor play. And the fathers are often really great. Not to say mothers aren't. Mothers tend to be a little bit more teachers.
Yeah.
And so we have to slow the moms down a little bit to get them to be a little bit rougher, in their interactional process.
Doc, last question, Doc. I'm not going to ask any more after this, but it's probably a lie. So when you say that, have you ever done any research on how the hormonal shifts happen because of this, the oxytocin and everything else that kind of calms the child?
We're actually doing some research in China now on EEG outcomes. And there have been some studies that really look at play.
Yeah.
When parents play with their children, their brain rhythms get into sync.
Yes.
And this has been studied. And I do another talk called Born to Play, where I talk about the science of playfulness and its implications for autism. But what I learned from preparing that talk, is that play is built in. Okay, in other words, all mammals have play as a deep emotional structure. And once you unleash that in parents, and I'm talking, we're doing a big research project right now in China, and the Chinese are not known for being playful. I got news for you. When you unleash their playfulness, oh my goodness, they play great. And so, and play has been studied that when you play in sync, your brain gets in sync, your brain waves get in sync. I don't think hormones have been studied, but definitely the neurologic system, they match. Yeah, they match.
Doc, I'm going to be contacting you. I'm just going to let you know.
Okay, well, we would love that. We would love that. We're really interested in getting people. So just for the group, there is a training coming up February, an online, it's called Online Intensive Workshop. It's just it's asynchronous, so you don't have to take it. It's a 2-day workshop, but it's spread out over 3 weeks that you can take 10 hours over 3 weeks and learn the entire play project model approach. So I would encourage people to consider that. If you just want a quick overview, we have a short course on our website, playproject.org. I'm not very good at, if I was smart, I would have had, materials and stuff. But if you go to the playproject.org, you'll get all the information you need about our training. It's there you go, info@playproject.org. There you go, and that will give you can either get an introduction or you can get an in-depth workshop, which you can then use to really get going, with this model. So February 8th, I think, is starts, but it goes for 3 weeks, and so you've got time to do it. It's asynchronous.
Doc, when we do that training, will we be able to share that training material with others, or is that something that we have to come back to your organization?
No, absolutely. So our model's very open. Our materials, our parent guide is now available to anybody. The book is available to anybody. The training, you can start to use the concepts. But what we found is that in order to get really good at this, you need to go through a training. You need to be supervised. And just like anything else, this is a skill set that will change your clinical practice forever. It's not easy because families are complicated. These children are complicated. If you want to serve a lot of families, you got to go through, the whole process, and you'll be good at the end. I've been doing this, I said, for 25 years, and now I can see a child and I can immediately know, okay, here are the keys to this child's case. But it took me years, literally, to really get good at it. And that's what we do, is we train you to a level of certification, just like any other training program. You know, what you put in, you get out. It's designed to educate providers to really help these families. So, yeah, Teresa, you had a question? Says I have to run. Thank you for your time. Okay, Cortland. Teresa, yeah, go ahead. You can unmute yourself and just ask a question if your hand is up for a reason.
I was just wondering how much this method could be used to help with engagement of older kids. I mean, yes, I see very, very good results from your toddlers, but what about a 12-year-old?
Well, this method works pretty much with any child, even an adult with autism, because of what it does, it gets you into sync with them. The difference is that young children's brains are more plastic. And so you're developing their neurologic structures the earlier you engage with them. What it does for older children is it tends to make them happier. It tends to make them more engaged and interactive. And it can change their developmental course over time. I've seen it really benefit a lot of children. I think the benefit is more behavioral than developmental, whereas with younger children, it's more developmental as well as behavioral. So yes, it does work because it's fun and you're individualizing the child's curriculum, if you will, or your interactional process. It isn't as powerful as the children get older in terms of changing the developmental trajectory, which is why we're so dedicated to early intervention.
Am I allowed to ask one more question, Doc?
Sure.
Okay. Last thing, because I what you said about the neuroplasticity of the brain and older boys and older young people, I understand that. Do you, I don't know if you're in this realm, but if this would help, but do you think that, I can't even form that question, Doc. I have to come back to you on it because you got my head spinning.
That's
Well,
okay.
and so,
Well, and
Eric,
it's 3 o'clock.
I
I want to respect people's time, so.
Well, no, I'm not sure if Eric and I are talking on the chat, but so a couple of thoughts, knowing what you said for the older adolescents, even we have some programs where even preparing them for occupational experiences, having that, we're talking about play here, but that eye contact, some of those things that you're going back and forth in play would be useful to them at that point in time in their lives, knowing that, what you said.
It really depends on the child's profile. So when you do the play project, one of the things that you learn is how to profile the child. And once you understand the child's developmental profile, their comfort zone, their sensory motor profile, their functional developmental levels, then you know precisely how to intervene with that child in order to really help them get engaged and to improve in their development, because you know what the next developmental step is going to be. And so you can't just assume that because they're an adolescent that they're ready to learn some skill. You have to profile every child individually. And maybe that's the last thing I'll say, is that this is one of the most neurodiverse programs you will ever run into, because we meet the person right where they're at, and we honor and respect that person right where they're at, and we have fun with that person. And it's not therapy, it's intervention, which is different. And at some levels, not even intervention. It's just having fun with another person. which is what I love about this model. So
Feels like active parenting.
it is, it's just beautiful. It's really beautiful. And it helps the children make progress. But you know what? I'll just say last thing is that this is what every parent wants, is to connect with their child and to help their child make progress. And that's no different. That's why it's neurodivergent. It's no different than any child, no different. It's just that you have to meet this child where they're at by profiling them accurately. So.
Well, we really appreciate you presenting your work, and I have no doubt, based on some of the chat that's public and private, that some of the links that you sent, particularly for the training, will be used. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, please get in touch. If there's anybody who's interested in what we're doing, please get in touch with me. If you go through info@Play Project, I'll be happy to meet with you. I'm really passionate about this. I think it's truly changing the lives of children. And I appreciate, Leslie, the opportunity to, speak to everybody. So thank you so much. I really am grateful.
We'll bring you back again and in person in West Virginia, and we'll keep you.
That's a deal. That's a
Just
deal.
a wording.
Thanks
All
for the
right.
invitation. All right. Take care, you guys.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.